Okay, good. Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello, hello. Yep, I can
Fantastic.
hear you all good.
I had a very strange technical problem at the start there. An entire screen froze, and I was like, no, let's not
Not a good
start with
time.
that. Whew, but it came back just in time. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Anyway, Abby, thanks for joining, mate. How you doing?
Oh, pleasure's all mine, yeah. I'm good, How are you?
I can't complain. Just had to jump up to close my window for a second there because it's getting a bit cold, and didn't want to get too chilly doing a chat. You know what I mean? I want to keep it nice and warm and cozy in these cold winter days. You know.
Exactly.
You're based in Edinburgh, right?
Yes, yep,
Cool.
Edinburgh, Scotland, yeah.
Excellent. I said that like I always knew that, even though you told me like a minute and a half ago. I was like just playing it cool, like I know all about this guy.
Oh, you've done your research, that's all.
Exactly. I googled the name and all. I did all that standard low key stalking, you know.
Yep.
So, do you want to like before we get into it chatting? Do you want to like introduce yourself? Tell us about who you are, what you do, and stuff.
Of course, yeah. So my name is Abhinav Jayanty. I am a data engineer based in Edinburgh, in Scotland, working for a company called Quorum. So we're a managed service provider slash cloud solutions provider. Very active in the local community, and yeah, hopefully trying to spread our name a little further through other conferences and podcasts
Cool.
such as this. Yeah, so yeah, I work with Azure, Power BI, all the
Okay.
sort of all the good stuff, all the fun stuff in my day to day. Yeah, data engineer by trade, but I mean, you start to work with little bits of everything, don't you? So
Yes, I
yeah.
get it. What was your entry? What was your way in there? What did you start working on? That
So I mean, entry into data, I was yeah. I mean, it wasn't really kind of like a non-traditional way into a job into IT. I did a degree in computing science, and then
that'll help me.
basically came to the end of it and realized all I enjoyed was the data modules that I had in my final year. So I was like, might as well just go that way rather than becoming like a dev or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, fair enough.
Not to say that's yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was data scoop in my opinion, but I'm
Data
biased.
is very cool. It's very cool. Everyone else is wrong. The nerds are right. Everyone else is wrong. I was gonna like
Yeah.
Ben's saying he's not bragging, but of course he is bragging. He knew Abby before he was famous. So yeah.
I'm famous. I mean Ben's famous. Yeah, I don't know if I'm famous,
Well,
but
if he's famous and he says you're famous, maybe that you're just like de facto famous.
oh, I know. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
that's
I'm
a good
not even
point
sure if I
actually. Yeah,
used de facto correctly in that context, but I'm sticking with it. I'm just gonna
makes
say
no
it definitely
sense.
was. Yeah, I don't care. It's fine. um, yes. So basically, you enjoyed the data modules, and you correctly said data is cool because it is
Of
basically.
course it is.
I also maintain that data is like one of the few like final actual products. You know,
Mm.
because if you think like when you work with, and I know I'm obviously biased because I work with data, but like it doesn't matter like what type of company you work for. What matters is like the data because all they want to do is sell more of product. In order to sell more of product, they need the data to sell more product, you know? So without the
Mm.
data, there is no product. That's probably a really bad way of putting it, but I'm
So
sticking
it's
with it.
always the end product as well. Yeah, kind of you see. Yeah, I totally get what you mean. Yeah, it's like and that's kind of what I saw myself always doing. I never kind of. I don't know if this makes me. I don't know how I come off saying this, but I love to be you know, in front of in the spotlight. I love to kind of. I feel like I thrive in the sort of environments where
That's
I'm able
cool.
to work with things and do things where
Mm,
it has an effect on the end product, as you said. So, yeah, I felt like a lot of the work you do with data, a lot of the data visualization stuff. I feel like
mm,
that's you feel like you've got a proper impact with what people
yeah,
not only sort of it's not for their enjoyment, but it can be
mm,
really important information that they're trying to sort of
for
derive
sure.
from data that you're working with. So from that
Nice.
aspect, and also all the community stuff is just brilliant
Yeah.
in data specifically. I feel like we've got because we're a wider company. We're not just a data company. We've got the
Okay.
guys in the infrastructure teams and all the sort of the managed service side of things. They're always saying, "You data guys are never in the office. You're always jet setting to conferences around the world and speaking at all these conferences and stuff like that. It doesn't feel like there's a proper there'll be events, but it doesn't feel like a community in a lot
Yeah.
of other technologies and platforms. I feel like we've got something really special with data people. But
Yep.
again, I'm biased. So.
It's really interesting actually, because it's a really good point that I made. Because yes, the community is strong. We kind of love in that element. We're kind of a bit like we're very social, like coming together. We like to present. We like to, but data people are kind of like also known to be quite, um, not the most social people. Quite introverted. And like before, when you said that you like being in the spotlight, my first thought was like a data engineer who likes being in the spotlight. That's not,
I mean,
but
yeah, so I suppose that's
actually,
not me. That's not the
yeah,
data side of me. That's maybe just my sort of.
yeah.
I don't want to use the word narcissism, but people are thinking it.
Right.
So
Love it.
yeah,
Maybe we just
yeah,
we just like we're like coming together within our own group, you know? It's
yeah.
kind of like it still has that very like high school feel to it sometimes, where like all the
Cliquey.
kind of
Yeah.
yeah, clicky, but also like you've got like the sporty people sit together and the kind of like the
Mm.
nerdy people that sit together, and all these groups based on personality. And in a way that just doesn't change. It's still the way it is now, you know? Um like when I was a few months ago, I was out at a speaker dinner, and I felt so comfortable having these conversations, which isn't like me at all. Normally, if I'm out with people who I don't know, I get quite like introverted. But because we were all enjoying talking about the same stuff, it was awesome. I was like, yes, I like it. We can talk, and I just don't have to
And
like
something you just
pretend to
feel it.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Conferences and stuff
yeah,
like that. You just know for a fact that you're surrounded by like-minded people, not
yeah,
only in terms of the technology, but even just as people.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe because of that, there's also like other like like more common interests. Like I don't know, maybe you're more likely to encounter someone who likes Doctor Who when you're working
Mm.
with data because of like the
Mm.
associated nerdiness. I'm not saying definitely Doctor Who, but you get what I'm saying, like those sort of things. Like today at work, one of my colleagues just casually mentioned that he's really into Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I was like, and I will now talk about Star Trek: The Next Generation all day because that's what I can do.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean
so yeah.
we're the same. We've got yeah. So I mean what it's been about 10 minutes, and I'm going to bring up the fact that I love Formula One. It's kind
Okay.
of it's my whole personality. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, actually, I
Cool.
spoke about it in my interview because again, yeah, like kind of we can come. I think we'll definitely touch on it again. It's one of my sort of real passions for why I understand how cool data is and how powerful it can be is because of how heavily it's
Mm.
used in kind of all sports, but Formula One as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, kind of in my interview, and then I don't want to say it's maybe kind of it's like maybe half the reason I got the job. It's probably because I'm an F1 fan because we've got yeah the F1 teams channel for the company. It's dominated by data guys.
No way. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so it's
That
dominated by
sounds
the
cool.
data team, and then it's just like you actually just start to find people. They come out of the woodwork when we're chatting about it at a company event or whatever, and you realize that
Mm.
there's so many other people in the company, but it's only the data people that want to talk about it.
That's cool. I like it. Really interesting.
Yeah.
But you're actually, I mean, I knew we were going to talk about sports at some point because you have the whole Moneyball thing going on, which of course we'll get to as well. Um, but yes, the one type of data I would love to work with, which I've never worked with, was sports data. I would find it so interesting because it's just a different. It's it's the same with like when you work and you have your passion project. It's always something you're interested in and stuff. And my
It can be any
side
data. Yeah, it doesn't
projects,
have
yeah,
to be. Yeah.
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 But for me it's always sports data because I like playing fantasy football, for example. Um, but yeah, just to have some like more like of a I don't know touch point with sports data to see how it works. Like for example, I would love to see all the data that Opta get to see, because they must have
Yeah, Opta are one of the main. Yeah, it's just
amazing
like just
stuff.
imagine being one of those guys sitting, every weekend just in front of screens of data, and that's yeah, it's just like
Yeah, the
the
dream.
dream.
Yeah. But on F1 is interesting because obviously again lots of data in F1. But just as F1 as a sport, I'm one of those annoying people who's gonna say like I used to like F1 but not so much anymore.
Mm, yeah,
And it was like
as
and I'm
I
it's
yeah,
it
I
was
hear that a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not like I try to watch it. I think it's also because I don't have as much time as I used to on
Hmm.
Sundays to sit and watch. I was always fun. But I'm talking like a long time ago. It's probably been like, I don't know, 15 years since I've really sat down to watch F1. I did every now and then when something comes up, but of course I'm with it. I'll watch Drive to Survive, and I'm like, that's really cool, and I'll try and watch a couple of races.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right.
But to be fair though, 15 to 20 years ago were like the proper glory days. It feels like even like I mean, I'm relatively quite a new fan actually.
Okay.
Maybe only watching for the past sort of 5-6 years, but again,
Okay.
just
That's quite a lot.
totally threw myself into it. And then over sort of
Awesome.
lockdown and everything as well, it was kind of one of my saving
Sure.
graces almost. Just something to
I
be
can
obsessed
understand
with.
that. Yes,
But
I
yeah, it's
reckon
just
lots.
like
Yeah, yeah. No, I guess lots of hobbies started that way. You know, you're like, I
mhm.
need something. You get hooked on it, and it just continues. So that makes sense. But sorry,
Yeah, no,
how old are you,
totally.
mate? If I may ask, you don't have to answer if you want to.
I am 23. I turn
You-
24 in a couple of weeks.
so, so when I said I haven't watched Formula One since about 15 years, you're like, yeah, I was like 6 years old, dude.
So
So
again,
whatever.
this is something that I tend to catch out a lot of people with as well. Yeah, it's just like the look of shock. Usually, it's funny in the data community as well. I was at the past summit in November, and kind of I think 3 or 4 people that I spoke to. It's not as if I go around. Yeah, again, this is I think a lot of people seem just based off of kind of small contact. You'll think all I ever talk about is the fact that I love Formula One and that I'm really young, but yeah, the conversations that come up, obviously, if it comes up in conversation, it's just like, oh yeah,
That's fair.
I'm 23, and someone says, you were born after I started working with SQL Server.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's mad.
it's all sorts. I've heard all sorts of comments. Actually, it's just like even
Yeah.
today, in the office, one of our directors was like, he was presenting something with my boss actually, an
Mm.
event, and they were saying like one of the pieces of feedback they got was they were like Morecambe and Wise. So he said, and then just like straight away he's just like, "You won't get the reference, will you?" And you're just like, I was like, "No, I'm too I'm too young." And he's just like, "All right,
That's
get up
mad.
YouTube, drop the
Yeah,
work you're doing, get up YouTube. I'm going to show you a clip for context of this reference of a show from 30,
yeah.
40 years ago."
But that's brilliant. I love that so much. I got to say though, you're saying you might sound like all you talk about is you like F1 your age. From my perspective, as someone who's 41 or something, 41. If I was 23 again, I'd be like kicking down doors and just walking into rooms and shouting, "I'm 23," because it would because it wouldn't be bad. So I think
It's
it's
fun
fine.
to it's fun to see the reaction on people's faces. I need to just remember that
Mm,
it's how it comes off sometimes because
yeah, fair enough.
a lot of
But
people can start to really evaluate things in their life.
they're just
Just
jealous.
thinking, oh, back to when they were 23. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember when I worked for BSF a few years ago. I worked there for like 6 years, and I was at like the headquarters for a meeting. Actually, Power BI training. Yeah, was at the headquarters for Power BI training that I was given, and they always have like the people talking in the room. Okay, they introduce themselves, and it was actually quite common because where BSF is located in Germany, it's like the entire city is just BSF. And the amount of people who would be saying, "Yeah, I've been working for BSF since like 1970 something," and I was like, "Wow, that's like before I was born." If you work for the company
Hmm.
the length of my entire life, it was just incomprehensible to me to work for a company for that long. But
Yeah.
yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
I can see Olivier in the comments. He was it was his reaction was one of my
A shock.
favorites.
Yeah.
It was. We were all just in the group, and I was just like, the look of complete shock. And then, yeah,
Mm,
I think you spoke to Elena as well
mm,
at some point. I think she was on this at some point. Yeah, so she was there as
okay.
well. Elena
Okay.
Drakulevska, I believe. Yeah.
Ah, Elena. Okay.
Yeah, Elena, yeah. And as soon as I said it, she just came over and just hugged me as if I was some young child that was lost somewhere, like a
Yeah.
puppy or something. I was just like, I'm
That's
not,
class.
yeah. Yeah, it was just like, so when I say like various reactions, I don't know if she's watching, but
That's
that
pretty
kind of
funny.
caught me off guard. Yeah.
That's mad. I love it. I love it. Oh yeah, yeah. Anyway, mate, Moneyball. I'm curious about this. What's because I've seen your session profile, I've
What's the
seen who
story
you work
behind it?
with.
Yeah.
What's the story behind
So
Moneyball, other than being a cool
it's
film or whatever?
I'm on a mission to travel around the world and offend sports fans internationally, but with my opinions.
Cool. Sounds good.
No, yeah, as I said, yeah, it's kind of part of where my passion for data stems from is sports, and then I'm also passionate about data because I've been getting involved in speaking at conferences.
Hmm.
First through New Stars of Data, number 5, the 5th edition. Yeah, so May last year. Shout out to Ben
Okay.
and William. So yeah, so since then it's just kind of took off, and so I did. I presented a session there with one of my colleagues,
Hmm.
which I can touch on later. But the Moneyball session was essentially I wanted to do something solo. I had an idea to kind of essentially why not speak about how important and powerful data is in sports, and also kind of
Okay.
tie it in with some of the tools and platforms that I work with on a day-to-day basis. So I have something there that kind of almost like a challenge I set for myself, kind of present something technical. Because yeah, as I said, I'm still relatively early on in my career, and at a certain point I was like, am I experienced enough to present something technical? It can be something really detailed. It can be something
Hmm.
really sort of, because again, in the community, you have these people that have been they've lived and breathed SQL Server and these tools and platforms for
Hmm.
longer than I've been alive. Um, so I was like, I can take it as a sort of, and I felt like it'd be a really cool session to deliver where I could talk about some examples, some really good uses of data analytics and data visualization in sports, and then also just tie it in with yeah, kind of take an example data set and do some visualizations, do some transformations, and link it back into, more importantly, give some value to the attendees, link it back to how you can use those platforms in business scenarios, day to
Yeah.
day
Okay.
kind of work, and tie back into what I'm actually sort of doing at work.
Yeah.
And it was received really well. Yeah, I think some people it was funny, a lot of people kind of, it's almost like a split of feedback where a lot of people were really happy with just the first part of talking about the sports and talking about how the data
Hmm.
was used. And
Hmm.
then a lot of other people want you to get straight into the tools and the platforms. They want to actually learn the proper skills to do with that. Whereas I tried to kind of do it half and half. So it's still something I'm kind of
Hmm.
working with, sort of modifying as I go along.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot of times already. I think as most conference sessions do.
Hmm.
Yeah, so the first time I delivered it was Data Scotland,
Okay.
which is extremely local. It was in Edinburgh last year
Okay. Cool.
at
Hmm.
the Murrayfield Rugby Stadium, actually. So it kind of felt apt to do a talk on sports at the rugby
Hmm.
stadium. It's the home of Scottish rugby.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So yeah, being able to tie in some examples from there, and then obviously it was the session that I presented at the PASS Data Community Summit in Seattle in November as well, which
Oh wow, that's
was
cool.
a complete shock as well. Again, because I was like, it's going to be an American audience. I've named it,
Hmm.
so it's called Moneyball because when you say Moneyball to someone, the first thing in their head is data analysis and sports statistics, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When I presented the session, it's a funny story actually. When I presented the story at the session at Data Scotland, and basically I said, it's Moneyball based off the movie about baseball, but I sort of took the executive decision that we're in Scotland, we're at a rugby stadium. I'll start off with, you know, examples from rugby, football, Formula One.
Hmm.
I won't really mention baseball. And I
Okay.
said, just out of pure curiosity, I went, yeah, because I hadn't really prepared anything for that sort of,
Hmm.
to get into baseball. Because, and I felt like a lot of people wouldn't connect with it. And I said, just out of curiosity, in the room, it was a room of about 60 people that attended the talk at Data
Hmm.
Scotland. And I said, how many people here are fans of baseball? Kind of how many people follow baseball?
Hmm.
One guy just kind of meekly sort of half put his hand up as if he had just kind of used to follow here and there. So I was just like, yeah, so I was like, I'll completely get away with not talking about baseball at the Scottish one. But delivering it in America, that's a completely different ballgame because I'd get, yeah,
Hmm.
abuse and other things thrown at me for not mentioning baseball at an American conference.
So you had to go through and like read all the rules of baseball or something.
Yeah, I had to basically educate myself on what baseball is, how data is actually collected in baseball,
That's
um,
interesting.
and it
Wow.
still landed all right. But
I can
yeah,
imagine.
it's something that it's I feel like it's quite versatile because I can keep tweaking it to
Mm.
conferences I go to in different locations.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
So next, so in a couple of weeks, I'm presenting it. I got asked to present it at the Edmonton Data Professionals User Group, actually. So yeah, and so I'm kind of
That's
trying to
cool.
see if I can rope in some sort of Canadian hockey examples,
I'm gonna say like
ice hockey
ice hockey
examples.
would
Yeah,
is thinking of, yeah, that would make sense.
yeah,
That's interesting. That's a good point actually, and it's a nice. It's something I've never considered, but to have a session that you can change to the location of your audience.
yeah.
It's
It's
quite a
something
nice
that I
idea.
really actually quite enjoy doing. Yeah, it's like I have a lot of fun presenting the session. I feel like I get really carried away as well. Like Data Scotland, actually, I mean, I can say this now because I've presented the session at a couple other conferences, this,
Hmm.
that, the other. Like being up there in front of the audience, just talking about kind of like it sounds a little cheesy, but talking about what I love, I really got carried away, and I was like towards the end, I was like I had to actually just watch the time and make sure that I was finishing up in proper time because I feel like once I'm in my element,
Hmm.
and it's maybe not a good thing as a conference speaker. I should really focus on timekeeping and stuff like that. But a lot of the stuff that comes through is a
Hmm.
lot of the feedback I got, which I was really happy about, is people saying my passion for the subject really kind of
Yeah,
shone through.
definitely. I mean, obviously, I'm not a particularly experienced conference speaker. I've done like one or two,
Yeah.
but if you enjoy the subject, the topic, people respond to it. Yes, of course, timekeeping is always good because to you finish it up properly, but whatever. But I think honestly, people would rather see a conference where you a talk, sorry, a session where perhaps you don't wrap it up in the way you wanted to, but you're really passionate, enthusiastic, rather than where it just kind of feel like you're just going through the motions and just doing the same
Mhm.
thing. It's really nice. I like that. Cool, man. So
That's been fun.
do you plan on doing like other sessions also related to sports? Are you gonna like just kind of branch out from
Yeah.
it? Or
Yeah.
you
So
can
this is the thing. I don't
like
want to
make,
sort of I
make it
don't want
like
to
your name
become the
for
sports
yourself.
guy.
Right, exactly. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought about this when it came to sort of I wanted to think of other conference sessions to deliver, essentially to
Mm,
um, increase my chances, basically getting accepted at conferences, this, that, the other.
okay.
So yeah, as I said, kind of is sort of my rule of thumb's obviously going to be to stick to what I know. I'm not going to try and deliver a session on something I don't know anything about,
Mm,
obviously. So this was kind of like a little fun one that I decided to do. The first conference session I delivered at New Stars of Data, actually, I was going to say was a non-technical professional development session that I delivered with one of my colleagues called Taylor,
okay. Okay.
and we essentially the title of the session was Junior Data Professionals: The Key to Every Data Team's Success.
Nice.
And
Okay.
essentially, it was the way it came about. Actually, was at Data Scotland 2022.
Mm,
Our company Quorum sponsored the event, and two of our senior colleagues delivered a session on sort of basically they titled their session "So You Want a Career in Data." And
mm,
essentially, all what they did over the session was recount their experiences and how they got into the data
mm,
world. Um, so Taylor and I kind of saw that. I at the conference, I basically decided, I could see myself getting into the speaking sort of thing. It was actually the first conference I attended after I joined Quorum,
that's cool.
and so straight away, from that point, I knew that I wanted to kind of pursue the presenting aspect of these conferences and everything as well. So I spoke to Taylor, and we thought kind of basically we said, I mean, if they can do it, why can't we? And took the same session and spun it on its head to deliver it from the perspective of someone that's junior coming into the data
Mm,
community, not
okay.
junior in age, but junior in experience. I feel like
Yeah.
data is one of the industries right now where people are coming into the industry with completely different skill sets
Yeah.
and qualifications that you wouldn't really expect. This is why I always say it's not a non-traditional route of getting into data by doing a computing degree,
Mm.
but I work alongside a guy called Chris, who is one of our BI consultants. He was a barber during lockdown
Love that.
and upskilled, kind of transitioned into a job in data, just just out of a personal interest and a sort of uh,
Mm.
a feeling that it was an industry that was taking off. So
That's
we
so cool.
so it was really fun actually because Taylor and I, yeah, we took Chris's story as a
Mm.
starting point and basically fleshed it out as, this is what we're seeing in the industry right now.
Mm.
So aiming it at people looking to get into the data world by saying, this is what worked for us.
Mm.
This is what a good interview looked like. This
Mm.
is how we kind of made sure our passions for data came through. Again, myself talking about Formula One and stuff like that.
Mm.
But also, we felt that it would be a really good session for people that are really experienced, people that are seniors in
Mm.
their data teams, people that are responsible for hiring people uh, in data, because not to say that they lose touch, but it'd be good for them to hear the perspective of someone that's recently
Of-
been hired in data and how
yeah.
kind of for them to evaluate what are their hiring processes like, what are their kind of values when it comes to
Yeah.
picking someone. Do they pick someone that's really experienced? Do they pick someone that's junior? And I mean, the punchline at the end was that juniors are cheap, so hire them instead of someone else. But also the fact that we're coming in with fresh perspectives. We're coming in with juniors are a lot more moldable,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's like the long term value that you have in training someone up that maybe doesn't have all the skills to start with.
Mm.
It's the passion to, it's the drive to learn that's the most important thing.
Sure.
Which is what it's what we say. Like as a company, we actually I really like the fact that we say, it's not about whether or not you've got the technical skills. It's about whether you're a good person and
Yeah.
have that ability and interest to learn. Because by that point, there's nothing stopping you to actually
Completely.
sort of make it. Yeah,
I think so I also really enjoy these stories about the people with the non-traditional entry into the industry. Not just because I have it myself, but I just think I enjoy hearing it from everyone's perspective, like what they do, what they've done, and stuff. But regarding the experience and companies and listening to the juniors, for sure. I mean, like anything, basically any decent company is gonna always appreciate that different perspective from the juniors and what they have to offer
yeah.
and stuff as well. Um, that's really cool.
And my
I
boss was
like this.
happy for us to. My boss was happy for us to deliver it at conferences that
Yeah.
we sponsor because it makes us look good. So
That helps. That helps for sure.
yeah, makes the company look good. So yeah, there's definitely we've hired. I believe so. We're now a team of 18 people, I believe,
Okay.
and 3 or 4 in the last year have been hired just completely through conferences. So either they
Wow.
came to our stand at a conference, or we knew them through attending other conferences.
That's really
And
interesting.
yeah, kind of, it's, I mean, straight away, yeah, because it's something that someone said to me when I attended SQL Bits
Hmm.
last year in March, and it's something that someone said to me really stuck out. They were saying, it's more around being offered jobs, but in general, they were saying people at conferences is not as if you should treat it as a hiring event. It's not that. You're there to
Of course.
learn and mingle. But if someone's at a conference, it's because they've got the interest and drive to learn. And speaking to them at conferences, speaking to them in those environments,
Hmm.
lets you know kind of what kind of person they are. So it's almost as if kind of, I would rather, if I was ever in the position of hiring someone, I'd hire someone that had spoken to at a conference rather than sort of, interviews can feel really formal, this, that, the other. So
Yeah.
you get a really good vibe for what the person's like, what they're going to be. Obviously, you
Hmm.
do need to have the interview stages to make sure that they'd be able
Yeah.
to, that
Yeah.
they're reliable to actually work. But
I like
in
you. You
terms of
hi.
actually gauging what a person's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't hire them just off of just off a. I mean, yeah, personality hires are a thing, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You've got to
Maybe a
be
bit
able to.
extreme.
You've got to make
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
they're well rounded.
yeah.
But
But
yeah,
going back to,
it's stories like that are really good for us. Yeah.
yeah. Going back to what you said before, I find quite interesting as well. I remember at my previous company, when we're hiring people, one of the things I discussed with my boss was actually removing the need for formal education off
Hmm.
the job description, because I kind of, again, probably biased because I don't have it, but when you see, like, it needs to have a master's and this, that, and the other, I find a
Yeah,
bit
that's like
unnecessary sometimes.
again,
I
all
understand.
it's really showing is an ability to learn. Yeah, kind of, and put your mind
Yeah.
to. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that sometimes I think kind of if it was worth doing the degree, but I wouldn't go that far.
No,
But
no, no.
yeah, again, it's like I've always enjoyed. Yeah, it's about the learning and how you apply it. That's
Yeah.
what's more important. Is not the fact that you've got the
Yeah.
qualification.
I mean, I say this thing myself because when I was at uni, I studied history and politics, which of course has got nothing to do with what my job, my
Yeah,
career. But sometimes I think to myself, do I regret it? I don't, of course, because of the things that you go through, your experiences, and also the way it teaches you to think. You know, I said this in an interview once, and the person who interviewed me actually laughed, and I was like, no, that wasn't a joke. I'm serious. Like, it was
hmm
the when you study like something like history, I've spent a lot of the time kind of like wondering why the person who was writing to that is lying to me. That was always my approach. That person who's written this is lying to me. What can I do to either find out that it's true, or find out that actually it isn't true? Like weighing stuff up. So kind of being analytical that way, just kind of, again, I know it's not the same as using data, but it was just like a way of thinking, not just taking things at face value, all this type of stuff, which of course I appreciate, I enjoyed. But when it comes to data, like in the interview processes that I've been through, or when I've interviewed people, for me, it's what comes through is, I think, as you said yourself, is just when someone is really passionate about data, you can see it like really quickly. And for me, that is
hmm
worth a lot, because if they care about data, they're gonna care about the job a lot more,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was a no brainer to deliver the session. We were like, we've
Mm,
got all these stories from, and yeah,
mm,
and Taylor and I have, to this point, actually interviewed a lot of
mm,
people for our quorum as well.
mm,
And yeah, because it feels like it's, yeah, you know what to look for if you were there recently, if that makes
mm,
sense. You can really kind of gauge, you can put yourself into the shoes of the other person. You can kind of think about what they're wanting to
yeah,
get out of this role, and
yeah.
setting the expectations. It's all like a really valuable experience. I really enjoy interviewing people as well, just because
I was gonna ask if you
it
enjoyed it.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy. I mean, I enjoy talking to people about what they're passionate about, and if it's something that
Yeah.
we have a shared passion for,
Mm,
yeah, that's how I see the process. Is yeah, I've when I was applying for jobs, I was put off by how formal and sort of
mm,
you know how many questions weren't about me, but what my specific skills were and how I would benefit the company.
yeah. Yeah.
It's standard stuff, and every company is going to have different sort of thoughts and methods about it. And I'm not saying one's good, one's bad, but what I've seen work for me is
Mm,
definitely that sort of approach where you put more focus on the person and
mm,
just have that sort of faith that they're going to be
mm.
able to put the time in to learn.
So when you interview, do you have like some like favorite go-to interview questions, or is it not like that for you? Is it more like, uh,
I mean, you've got to have questions. Again, if you
questions? Yeah.
ask any of my colleagues or friends, they would say that in an interview, as the interviewer, you don't want to do most of the talking.
Mm.
So in that perspective, I'm maybe not the best option to interview someone because I do love to talk.
Yeah.
Actually, the
Fair
last one
enough.
that I did, yeah, my colleague was like, "Remember, he's the one that's got to speak." So you like, and I was like, at the end, I was just like, look, it was a 1 hour interview. I maybe kind of we can play it back or whatever. I spoke for about 10 minutes asking questions, but yeah, it's you've still got to put the focus on the person being
Of
interviewed,
course.
but
Mm,
I like to, yeah, I feel like the questions you can ask definitely if even if it's not a technical interview, especially.
mm,
So yeah, if I've done a couple so far, and they're um, they're actually the sort of non-technical interviews, like the team fit sort of ones. Those ones you can just sort of,
Mm. Yeah.
the more it feels like an informal chat, the better, because
Yeah.
at that
True.
point you know that they're going to be a good fit. So
Mm.
yeah, but again, still trying to assess
Mm.
technical capabilities and so on. It's different. I feel like a lot of people have really different views and perspectives on what an interview should be and what they
Yeah.
actually notice
Mm.
in the other people. I could. I could just really enjoy talking to someone, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be a good fit for the role or whatever. You've got to keep all these things in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've lucky to have never really had is an interview where you get lots of very technical questions, because I'm
Mm.
not good at answering those like face to face. It's just it's not what I enjoyed, and I've
Yeah.
been at that way since I was young. Like I remember when I was having like an exam, and when I was like 16 or whatever, and even when like the examiner would walk next to me or stand, I would just stop writing because I really hated that situation to have to think
Mhm.
and I hated that. But I remember also probably the most bizarre interview I've ever had, because obviously my skill is like this, the Power BI side. And I was having an interview, and it was, do you know when it's really, have you ever had an interview where it's really apparent that the person who's interviewing you might not know much about the subject itself? You ever had this?
Mm.
I was I was having an interview with people. It was a great team, very nice, great company, really was. And but when I was in the interview, it was, I would show them like the portfolio of like reports that I built and stuff, and they asked them like, well, it's like, do you know about filters? And I was like, what? He's like, do you know about like filters? And I went, well, what sort of filters? And I just kind of went, I just like reeled off like, I don't know, like 15 different types of filters, and they're like, okay. Like that was it. I was like, okay, I think this might be all
It's
right.
just like when it feels like they've just looked at the sort of surface level sort of. They've opened up
Yeah.
Power BI desktop and looked at all the different menus and said,
Yeah.
yeah, like yeah. I mean, again, yeah, it's like yeah, it sounds like me if I was doing a Power BI interview. To be honest, I'd probably ask those sort of questions.
Or me if I was doing anything related to data warehousing and stuff. Like, have you heard of
Yeah,
have you heard of SQL? I don't know.
yeah, yeah, probably.
Actually,
Yeah, I mean, it's like we had that sort of. I think you and I had this conversation when we first talked about doing this. I was just like, no, I'm not a. I mean, you are Power BI guy. I'm not
mm,
Power BI guy. But
fair
yeah,
enough.
it's
Yeah.
just like it's something I can lean into
Mm,
sometimes. And it's I actually had the opportunity, the pleasure, the honor of taking part in the Power Hour, the BI Power Hour at Pass.
yeah.
So obviously, kind of maybe for the audience, just for context, the Power Hour is essentially the most unserious hour of the conference that you're ever going to attend. And yeah, it's more kind of I tried to explain the concept to my family members and so on. Yeah, it's just the objective is people learn nothing, and which
Surface,
is
yeah.
great. You just get to you just get to have fun with it. So I completely leaned into the fact that I knew nothing about Power BI and just said, I'll stick to what I know best, being Scottish. So I was just like, you have like, we love whiskey, we love big mountains, we love kind of our tap water is really nice to drink. And then just kind of essentially, I said this to Ben, who is organizing, kind of who I don't know if he regrets now inviting me to do it,
Mm,
but I was saying kind of, my objective is to make the worst looking Power BI, like to make a Power BI report look like it was put together in an afternoon, because to my skill set, that is literally all the time I can spend on it.
fair enough.
And it was
Yeah.
it was the first ever time I had put a slicer on a report. It was the first ever time I had kind of like a map visual,
I love
because
it.
I had a joke about how how mountains in Scotland, a lot of the Munros, where if they're over a certain height, is they're like Ben, so like Ben Nevis, Ben Lomond are really large
Mm,
mountains that we have in Scotland.
mm,
And then I made a joke about how we've also got a Ben Weissman beside the stage, and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I had the first ever time I'd put a slicer on a report for that. And I remember I was sitting in the speakers lobby, before, just kind of the day before or whatever, kind of putting the final touches on my report, and I just met Scott Stoffer, who I think
Hmm.
you've had on the on here as well, and I was just like, Scott, I really need some help here. How do I do this one thing with this visual?
Mm.
And he must have
Mm.
just thought, someone that's so experienced with Power BI that teaches people Power BI must have just thought, who the hell is this guy? And who let him near Power BI desktop? Yeah. So no, that was really good fun. Yeah, that
That's
was
cool.
I really enjoyed that.
That
Yeah,
sounds awesome. I like that a lot.
yeah.
Yes, Olivia also said you had fun during Power. Sorry, quick question from me. Are you? You said you're going to SQL. Are you going to SQL this year as well? Did you said or not?
Not sure yet. Not confirmed.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. I might have some other family commitments. Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll. I think I'll try my very best. Maybe even just for the Saturday, because it's not. Yeah, I mean it's not far for me to travel
Yeah. Fair enough.
down
Yeah.
to Farnborough. But yeah, I mean, Bits last year was my first conference on a large scale, and it was just it blew my expectations out of the water. Everyone told me,
Nice.
Bits is like this. The party's massive. I don't know if you've ever attended,
I've never
but
been. Never been. Yeah.
you've never been.
I've never
You
been.
need to
No.
get yourself along, because it was
No.
yeah, it was the whole, from start to finish. It was just an experience, and it's just
Mm.
meeting all the people. And it was a lot of the people I spoke to. We have a lot of conferences in Europe, and obviously all over and there's sort of
Mm.
user groups and everything all over in America. But I feel like the I wouldn't say a divide, but I'd basically, the point I'm trying to get to is, a lot of the people I spoke to at SQL Bits, a lot of the people that came from the Americas, from
Mm.
Canada, they love coming all the way over to Europe
Mm.
to attend this, to the
Mm.
UK to attend SQL Bits, because it's still run by the community, and it has
Mm.
that feeling to it. And the
Yeah.
fact that the Saturday is free, like any other sort of SQL Saturday, you wouldn't have that
Okay.
at many sort of large conferences.
Didn't realize that.
Is that sort of feeling? Yeah, it was just like,
Mm.
and it felt like a really, yeah, it was just the whole vibe of it. You could
That's
feel
cool.
that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we were
I'd love to go.
so from Edinburgh, so it was in Newport in Wales last year,
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
which was, it's a bit of a trek from.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the flight down to Bristol, and then it was like a
Okay.
45-minute coach ride, and we were complaining about the travel. Me and my colleagues were like, "Oh, we have to, spending like a whole half a day traveling,"
Yeah.
and then you get to the conference, you're sat beside this guy that's came from the States, it's from
Yeah.
Canada, and I was
Mm.
speaking to a guy who's from Brazil, and you think about the
Wow.
journey they've made to be
That's
there.
mad. That's
And
crazy. I
they
love
have
that.
to fly all the way into London, and then they have to kind
Mm.
of make their way over to, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, it really put into perspective that I was mourning for
Sure.
nothing, essentially, to
Uh,
travel, because yeah,
if you're used to like a straight flight and then then I can
it's all
understand
subjective, yeah,
why.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
yeah.
Uh,
But
I
it
would,
felt really good. Yeah, that there was a really good venue and everything. So
yeah,
yeah, I'll definitely try and make it down this year.
yeah.
But
It's got a cool theme
if
this
not,
year,
there's
the
always
aviation thing. Yeah,
the aviation theme. Yeah, the airport. Yeah, because it's at Farnborough Airport, I think. Yeah,
yeah.
just really cool venue. Yeah.
When I was considering going, I'm not going because I've got like 3 conferences in the next few months. It was
Mm.
push my luck with the family, Um, when I was considering going, I thought I could try, because I used to be a flight attendant, and I was like, wonder if I could do something
Okay.
like flight attendant style there. But I had some, but
Yeah.
no, it's not going to happen. But
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, it's
good
just like
idea.
the theme. I'm really impressed. I've seen the agenda. I'm impressed at how, like, all the aviation themed puns, and all of the, yeah, kind of, oh
Yeah.
yeah, because it was Dungeons and Dragons last year, and it was in Wales, obviously, so it was just the perfect opportunity. There was
Right.
like
That
the
makes
big
sense.
red dragon. I was and there was one outside the conference venue. I remember it really well. Like, and people taking photos
Hmm.
at it. I was just
That's
like, yeah,
cool.
it's just it's really cool to see the amount of effort that goes into that side of it as well.
It's mad. It's very
Yeah.
impressive, yeah. I mean, for me, any level of conference organization is very impressive, but when you take it to that level, it must take so
Hmm.
long to put it all together.
Yeah,
Jesus
and
Christ.
I really want to, even just to see all of that. I want to make it along this year. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I won't be, even if I'm not there. A couple of my colleagues will be
Mm.
presenting on the Wednesday. Shout out
Okay.
to Robert and Olivia. I would highly recommend anybody attending to go along to their talk. because
Nice.
it's a talk on using. I've completely blanked on the title, and they're going to kill me for it. But using sort of different concepts to make your reports dazzle. Yeah, dazzle's the one word that's stuck in my head. So,
I got it. It's a
but
good word.
essentially, yeah, kind of using kind of different concepts. Olivia had mentioned she's done a talk before about essentially, yeah, how my high school art class taught me more about data visualization than my uh, statistics degree or whatever.
That's really
It's just like
interesting.
that,
I
that
like
sort of
that.
stuff. So taking that spin on data visualization, it'll be
Yeah.
a really, I'm really looking forward to hearing how it goes.
What I like about that is it's pretty much the opposite of a session that I recorded for the Power BI Summit. You know,
Mm.
I did a session called "Your report looks boring and nobody cares," and basically the entire concept behind it was um, it's okay to make a report that looks boring. And
Mm.
I'm not. There's nothing wrong. The entire thing is also there's nothing wrong with making a
Depends on what
beautiful
it's
report.
for, I suppose. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
The message is there's nothing wrong with making beautiful, but it's simply easier. And if it's not in your skill set, don't get concerned about making a boring report. But I tell you what
Yeah,
about
absolutely. Yeah.
this video that I recorded. I recorded the entire thing. I got to the end. I listened through it before you do all the edit and stuff. And I realized I'd had the microphone at such an angle and I had a very mild cold, but the microphone picked up like every single sniff, every single one.
Yeah.
And I was like, honestly, even for me, I can't listen to that. It's so annoying. I had two options to re-record the entire thing or go through the entire audio track and remove every single sniff. I did the latter,
Mm.
right? So if
Oh,
anyone
nice.
ever ends up watching that session and the odd sniff annoys you, I promise you, I removed about 75 others, so it's better better than it was.
Yeah,
My God.
is the as it's something to keep in mind as well. Yeah, it's you never realize how you come across. Like
Yeah.
I'm sort of indifferent. A lot of people say they hate the sound of their own voice, kind of in a recording or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, there's a joke in there about how I love the sound of my voice.
I was gonna
But
say, but
but no, yeah. So I was watching back the recording of my session at Pass just because I just wanted to kind of
okay.
see if there was anything blaringly obvious I could sort of pick
Mm,
back up on. And sometimes you kind of think even just you can be overly critical of yourself. You can say I should have
mm,
talked a little slower there. So
of course.
you know, I
Yeah.
mean, again, we were talking about how I've not got the strongest accent, but even for someone that if English isn't their first language
Yeah.
and I'm sort of just racing away with whatever I'm talking about. Yeah, it's and a lot of
Mm,
these filler words, these these knows, your sort ofs, it's standard stuff that you don't even really kind of
but
pick
it's
up on
so
when
hard.
you're doing it.
It's so hard to improve because it's so normal in speech to kind of and
Hmm.
when you're trying to think. Of course, you should try, but
Yeah.
we're all human at the end of the day.
That's the
I
thing
think
when I was doing the power hour thing again. It was just being so to say that I've presented in the same session on the same stage as the guys, Patrick and Adam from Guy in a
yeah, that's
Cube.
awesome. That's very cool.
They're professionals. They're just
Yeah.
it's just you can't compare yourself to because they're just naturals. They just go up there and
Mm,
kill it.
yeah.
Not to
Yeah.
say that I should be kind of comparing myself to other people or whatever, but yeah, you can. That's sort of something that a lot of people envy
Yeah.
sometimes. I think yeah, it's just being able to just go up there and just
Yeah.
completely nail it.
You do come across as a very natural performer. Like you seem very
Okay,
very comfortable just like
thank you.
talking and so you have this vibe or aura where you say of confidence around you, which is it's a nice thing. It brings out the best out of people as well, you know.
Yeah, as long as it
Um
doesn't come across as overconfidence. But no, yeah, I mean, straight. I mean,
aw, yeah.
totally. I've said to yeah. Again, people come up to me and they say, kind of, I don't know. I could never see myself doing that. I could never see myself presenting at a conference. And I was just like, in my mind, is it so much that they can't see themselves presenting a session at a conference, or is it so much that they're not confident enough in
Mm,
in what they want to present that
mm,
they would sort of struggle with? And I'm not saying that everyone needs to be a conference speaker. I'm not going to force people to get
mm,
up on stage if they've got these issues, but I also strongly believe that everybody's got a story to tell. Everybody's
Mm,
got something that they can present. The way I pick my sessions is something that either I know because I work with it day to day, or just something that I'm passionate about, as we said. But
mm,
everyone has something that they can present, be
yeah.
it technical or non-technical. I want to I'm really passionate about now getting people into following the same journey that I've had through conferences like New Stars of Data and the newcomer tracks
Nice.
at all these sort of conferences, because it's something that I've kind of had the privilege to do. But I always say one thing is things that people have told me is, yeah, you've always got something to talk about. Even if one person in the room walks away from your session with added value, you've done your
Yeah.
job.
Absolutely.
And everyone
Absolutely.
in that room, no one in that room wants to see you fail. Everyone
Yeah.
is there to listen to you. And that
Mm,
might be really daunting for some people. I feel like I thrive in that. I'm like, they've got no choice. They're stuck here. They've got to listen to me for the next hour. Much like
love it.
yourself right now. I was just like, yeah, it's just like I'm here to talk about what I know best.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really sort of scare me. And people, yeah, again, it's just like people say, "Oh, you're not really scared." Like, I could never do that. But I think it's just around you've got to actually have that faith in yourself that you can pull it off. Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that do have amazing sessions that they can deliver,
Mm,
and they're just kind of slightly holding
yeah.
themselves back.
I completely agree with what you're saying, especially when you're talking about finding a subject that you're passionate about or finding a subject that interests you. I mean, when I was a kid, I was extremely shy. Like I forced myself to study theater because I knew I would have to go on stage and do stuff to like force myself to like come out of my shell. I was a very shy kid. I hated presenting throughout my I say career, but my early jobs, I should say. When I started the first part of what I would consider to be my career, still hated presenting. And I had a boss back then, and she said to me, I promise at some point you will like presenting. I promise. And yeah, within like 2 years, because I recognize essentially what you've just said. Once you know a topic well enough, it's actually that's more than half the battle. You can just stand there. You don't feel like you're going to get found out, or you're going to or say or do something stupid or whatever. And now, obviously, not even now, there are certain things I like. For example, I about three months ago, I had to do a Power BI presentation on performance optimization. Now, that is not what I really ever talk about at all. So I was a bit nervous. It went well. I was happy with it. But if you give me something like, oh, speak about like Deneb, I mean, I speak about that all the time. So I can happily just within like 5 minutes put together a 1 hour session, like no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So for people like someone like you, someone like myself, when we've found the thing that we like to do, and
Yeah,
everything else just kind of
absolutely.
like just falls into place.
I totally get to find this out. Yeah, I mean, I was probably quite shy as a kid as well. I would say, yeah, I really kind
Mm,
of came out of my shell when I realized that, yeah, I could really kind of put myself in these positions where I thrive,
mm,
and I realized that. And yeah, so totally kind of, and what I said earlier about that doubt of who's going to take me seriously when I'm talking about something really technical. Someone in the audience
yeah.
has been working on this for a longer amount of time than me.
Mm,
What if they stand up and shout, "You're wrong. You're talking complete rubbish."
mm,
I know, again, the data community is full of friendly people that wouldn't do such things. But
yeah.
in
Yeah.
general, that sort of doubt and that sort of
Hmm.
that thought holding you back. So again, which is
Mm,
why I started with a non-technical session, and I delivered the what I like to call is like a half and half session now.
mm,
I'm trying to sort of push myself towards delivering a proper full technical session where I'm
okay.
only focusing on the platform and the tools and stuff like that. So
Mm,
part of just a client project that I was working on was setting up sort of logging, alerting, and monitoring solutions
mm,
in Azure using log analytics.
mm,
And that's something relatively niche, to be honest with you. It's just like using like the Kusto query language, all the sort of platform related stuff. This was the technical aspect of the Moneyball session, using
okay.
the Kusto language and the analytics platforms, especially under Fabric now, to basically analyze and visualize that sports data that I took
Mm,
from sort of actually from the F1 game. I got the telemetry data and analyzed it, which
Really?
was completely, it was completely, I stumbled into working with Custo through, it was like a Microsoft case study or sort of blog or something,
Okay.
using a tool called Data Explorer to stream
Mm.
and visualize F1 telemetry in real time. So me
Mm-hmm.
playing the F1 game at home, I was like, this is really cool. I could use my shiny new Azure skills to do something with
Wow,
my data. And
that's cool.
that's evolved into kind of, I wouldn't say it's my niche, but a lot of the projects I'm working on now, even actually some of the Power BI projects I'm working on right now at work, I'm
Mm.
using that knowledge of the Custo query language and all the sort of different platforms around that. So it's actually the session I'm going to deliver at Data Grilling in May, which
I
I'm
got
really
that.
excited
Cool.
about. Yeah,
Nice.
so I'll be there and I'll be delivering the session on log analytics. And because I was chatting to some people at Pass and I was saying, yeah, it's like, it's such a basic thing of managing an Azure platform, but no one talks about it.
Mm.
So that's kind of what I want to do. I want to talk about, I want to do things that people aren't doing already.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that's bold and brave and everything. There's no harm in
Mm.
delivering similar sessions, but I'm not going to enjoy it as much as something that's brand new,
Yeah. That makes sense.
or something that's a little different from the rest of the conference. Yeah,
No,
I feel like
huge.
it's so that's going to be really fun. Yeah.
Nice. That sounds awesome, man. Yeah. Also, Data Grilling is another one that I was thinking about going to, but I'm going to the Faroe Islands instead to do the data visualization conference there, which isn't it's also
Oh
in
yeah.
May. Yeah.
It's
So
really busy through sort
it's
of
very busy.
from now until June. It's just like
Yeah.
the sessionized links that I keep seeing pop up are just everywhere. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like even for myself, I'm kind of thinking, and I know people literally go week to week to different conferences. I'm like, I don't know if I've
Yeah.
got the energy for that. I'm like,
No.
I would love to do it, but
Yeah.
I'd also kind of, my boss would want me to still show up for work every now and then.
Yeah. I would. It would
Just
be
to set the stage I'm at now. Yeah.
a combination of the for me of my boss and also my wife. I
Yeah,
because
so maybe yeah, so I'm lucky in the
that's
fact that I've not got anyone dependent on me at the moment. But
okay. Fair enough. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
not
I, st-
yet. But
I
yeah,
started the year and I said to my wife, okay, I'm speaking at this conference in February in Oslo. Okay, no
hmm
worries. And it just like last year, I submitted quite a few sessions, and I think from the ones that were actually in person, only one got accepted. But that was fine because it was my first ever in-person session. And then I did I've done a fair few remote and stuff. And this year I did the same. I submitted quite a few, and like I said, like maybe like 4 out of 6 got accepted, and I was like, oh, I was not expecting that. So I had to go to my wife and
yeah.
say, by the way, I'm gonna go
By
also
the
here,
way,
here, here, and here.
yeah. So
So for
yeah,
you,
Fabric February was a good one actually. So yeah, it's
yeah, cool.
Martha. I was chatting to the all the guys that are organising it
Yeah.
at Pass. And
Cool.
Martha was basically just submit, submit, submit because the
Mm,
call for speakers was still open at that point. But
yeah.
I won't be able to make it out there because at that point I'd already confirmed Data Saturday Munich at the end of the month
Okay. Nice.
in February. That I think it's the 24th, I believe. So
Okay. Okay. Fair
it'll be
enough.
the Moneyball session there as well. So yeah, in my mind I was like, nah, I won't be able to make both.
Mm,
But
yeah. So cool.
yeah, I was like, Munich will be fun. I've always wanted to visit Munich, and then
That's silly.
it was just that's my tactic now. Just find conferences and places that would be really cool to visit because I've always wanted to. I always hate
Yeah.
myself wanting to
Exactly.
travel around Europe a lot more now.
Mm,
While I've still got the time, let's just say,
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
before other
That
things
makes
come along
sense.
in my life. So yeah, so why
Exactly.
not just submit to all these other conferences and see what happens?
Cool, man. At some point, I'm sure we'll find ourselves at the same conference. I look forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Anyway, mate, it's been over the hour, and I've had
No,
yeah. It goes by. See,
I didn't notice the time go by at all. Yeah.
no, it goes by real quick, eh? Especially when you're as easy as talking as such as yourself. You know, as you said, you like to talk, so it goes by
I
quickly,
mean,
right?
you're a professional as well, Ben.
Oh wow,
The way we
you're
kept things
full of
going.
flattery.
Yeah.
Anyway, in that case, mate, I'll say thank you so much for joining. It's been an absolute pleasure, and
No, it was really
good
good
luck with
fun.
it.
Yeah.
Upcoming talks. Everyone in the chat who is asking questions and commenting, thank you very much. Thanks for joining, everyone. I can't remember if I'll be back next Thursday. I think I'll see. If I'm back next Thursday, I'm back. If not, I'm not. But Abby, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, mate. Take care.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye bye.